He agrees to investigate aeons, sleeps in a refrigerator, and carries something that not even the emanators can stop. This is the story of Ashveil, or for those more intimate, La Mancha.
Ashveil is initially shown sleeping inside a refrigerator. He is affiliated with the Galaxy Rangers, being their leader, and also belongs to the Plan Arcadian Social Corps.
Role in history. His role in the current history of Plan Arcadia is primarily within the Pathfinder mission, a hunt through night, investigating the underworld and local enigmas. However, his presence against Mecha Pom-Pom is particularly interesting. He appears at the end of the fight, using his ability accompanied by a hunting chant, seemingly destroying the Astral Express where Pom-Pom was. Immediately afterward, he begins to pull Plan Arcadia into his ability, which had created stains in the area. At that moment, Pearl intervenes, using her ability to seal the phenomenon through the power of the Amber Lord, Kulipoth. What is his demonic arm? There's no exact confirmation, but its power is unparalleled and represents one of the greatest feats among the Path Striders of Honkai. Star Rail. Ashveil doesn't exhibit the behavior of an emanator, and his pistol rating reaches 87, which theoretically would rule out that possibility. His arm is mentioned by Pearl as that shadow, which was able to devour the swarm, the slain Lord Ravager Zulo 10 Amber Ages ago, and also the emanator Shuhu of Abundance, who would later or before help he become part of Blade, making him immortal. His power doesn't appear to originate from the hunt, but rather from a possible fallen Aeon, Ouroboros, the Voracity. There's still no confirmation about what resides in his arm, but it's evident that it's something extremely powerful. Theories. There are theories that his shadow, or left arm, originates from Vanwalk, a planet present since the game's launch. There exists the so-called cyclic demon of Vanwalk, which is reborn every 60 years. One of the points supporting this theory is the fact that this demon would actually be a parasitic worm. This information was supposedly discovered by the Galaxy Rangers, led by La Mancha, who found a central point connected to the Thestang tree, responsible for giving life to the entire island. This tree would have been designed by someone, possibly the emanator of erudition, Dr. Primitive, and would be used to store information from all life forms. Considering Dr. Primitive's modus operandi, it is plausible that, just as happened with Mr. Rika and his mimetic disease, Ashveil was contaminated or became a host for the cyclic demon. Furthermore, it's possible that the current La Mancha is a version controlled by this demon, and that this has become a chronic problem for the Galaxy Rangers, which would explain the reduction in their activities until the events of Penacony. The theories are reinforced when we observe Ashveil's ultimate form, which resembles a sandworm. It's also possible that La Mancha's reappearance was premeditated, considering that in Jing Yuan's files there are indications of an attempted connection between Yuke, the majestic Yaoguang, and Plan Arcadia.
Determining Ashveil's age presents a bigger problem than simply counting years, because when you cross-reference the events connected to him, an inconsistency arises. Shuhu, an emanator of abundance, participated in historical conflicts in Xianzhou, causing widespread destruction and leaving deep marks on history. The official version states that after these events he was defeated and sealed in the prisons of shackles, but there's a detail that breaks this narrative. According to dialogue within the game itself, a shadow of Ashveil devoured Shuhu. These two versions don't fit perfectly, so there's a simpler and more realistic hypothesis. Shuhu may never have been isolated. The story of the sealing may have been created by the Xianzhou Alliance as a form of control. It's funny how the population avoided panic and maintained the feeling that the situation was under control. Because I presume that an entity like Shuhu wasn't contained, or worse, was consumed by something unknown, that would be presuming they lost control of the situation. If that's true, then Ashveil's involvement changes completely in scale, because that means it, or rather the thing connected to it, was already present at one of the most critical events in Xianzhou's history, and that leads to a direct conclusion. For this to have happened, Ashveil already exists at this time. That is, its age isn't just long, it's directly linked to events that happened centuries ago, And considering that it remains active in the present, the question ceases to be, how old is it, and becomes, what exactly is keeping it alive? One of the first indirect descriptions of Ashveil doesn't appear when he actually enters the story. It appears earlier. Back in version 3.7, when the character hadn't even been fully revealed yet, there were indirect mentions of a specific figure described as a wolf with a broken leg. And that might seem like just a detail, but it's not. Within the context of Honkai Star Rail, the image of a wolf carries a clear meaning. A hunter, a predator, someone who lives by following tracks. But the important part isn't the wolf, it's the broken leg, because that completely changes the interpretation. A predator with a broken leg isn't at its peak. It no longer dominates the environment as before. It survives. And this fits directly with Ashveil's current behavior, a detective who accepts any case, who lives an unstable life, who always seems tired or out of place. This isn't a portrait of someone at the top. Now combine that with another piece of information. This same character is linked to absurd events, to things that, according to the game's own dialogue, were capable of devouring Emanator-level entities. And this is where the contradiction appears. How can someone described as a broken-legged wolf be connected to something so absurd? The simplest answer is that these two things are not the same. Ashveil may be broken, but what is linked to him is not. And this completely changes how we see the character, because perhaps he isn't the most dangerous predator in history, but rather someone carrying something far worse than him. One of the most accurate ways to understand Ashveil is not by listening to him, it's by listening to others. Boothill describes him as someone who has contacts in the government, connections with gangs, and can find anyone. But there's a strange detail. The only cases he didn't accept were his own. This completely breaks the image of a detective who accepts any job. And Boothill himself admits that there's something suspicious about it, that there's a secret there. When he teams up with Ashveil, he says, "I'll never forget that wolf howl." That doesn't sound like admiration. It sounds like someone who saw something they shouldn't have. Rappa describes Ashveil in an even stranger way. She says he doesn't have great deductive skills, which is already absurd for a detective. But she continues, he sees through people's hearts. That is to say, he doesn't solve cases through logic, he simply knows. And then comes the most important point. She says he carries an unimaginably heavy burden on his soul. This connects to everything: the past, the shadow, the arm. Sparksy goes even further. She says that clever people pretend to be foolish, that courageous people pretend to be ordinary, but that he is nobody. This raises an uncomfortable possibility. Perhaps Ashveil isn't even a real identity. And she finishes with an even stranger phrase. Do you realize how sad? A wolf's howl without an answer? This isn't just aesthetics. This speaks of isolation, of someone calling and nobody answering. Yao Guang defines him more directly. She says his future is like a bullet. It can't go back. It can only go until it hits the target. This implies one simple thing. Ashveil has no choice. He is trapped on a path he cannot stop. And when they are together, she asks, "Are you finally ready to show your fangs?" That is to say, there's still something in him that hasn't even been revealed yet. If you put it all together, the pattern becomes clear. Ashveil is never treated as a normal person. He is seen as someone who hides things, someone who doesn't function as they should, someone without an identity, and someone trapped by their own destiny. And perhaps that's the strangest part of all. Ashveil isn't described as a hero, nor as a villain, but always as something wrong. And with that, we conclude the story of Ashveil, aka La Mancha, the leader of the Galaxy Rangers. Until next time, and don't forget to subscribe to help us produce more videos.